God's will, unlike popular opinion, does not always get done. It is the opposite. God's will is rarely done here on earth. Why do you think we suffer? God's will is to prosper us, to bless us, to give us a wonderful life. His yoke is easy, His burden is light. He created this universe, this creation, and He said it was good. When He made Adam, He said it was very good. The Lord's will is that we love each other, and that we love Him, that we honor Him in all of our ways, all of our deeds, all of our finances and resources. That's His will. That's what He desires. And that rarely gets done. Because God's will is also to give us the free will to choose for ourselves what to do. Because unlike man, God is gentle and meek. He does not force His hand upon you. He gives you the right to willingly do His will. He wills for you to do His will, but you have to be willing to will His will. He's not a tyrant. Man forces his hand, not God. No, God is gentle and kind and loving. He tells you what is good. He tells you, choose life, but then He allows you to choose death also, if that is what you will, because He is just that good. Nobody likes being forced into doing anything. Don't tell me what to do. Well, the Lord tells you what you should do. I present you today with life and blessing. I present you today with curses and death. Choose life. He said that. He told Adam what his will was. He said, here, you can eat from every tree in the garden except for this one tree. If you eat from that, you will surely die. Don't eat it. Yet He gave Adam the free will to rebel. That was not God's will, but He allowed it. And it's the same thing that happened later on with Israel. God's will was to be king of Israel, to have a nation, a holy nation of priests. But Israel's will was, we want a king, we want to be like other nations. That was not God's will, but He allowed it because He loves them and said, well, that's what you want, fine. He lets you have your way, but that is not His will. Because His will, like I mentioned, is for you to have a wonderful life, the best possible outcome, and that is to serve Him, to be His people. But most of us are like an unruly calf that never had a yoke. Israel is that wild stallion that never had a rider on its back. They do not know how to obey, how to heed. And we have to be broken in, which is why the Lord gives us the Torah and He disciplines us. Because we have to be broken in so that we learn to obey. And yet He does it with love, with grace and mercy and compassion and patience. He allows you to go your way, but He keeps telling you. He's sending messengers to warn you, to call you back, tell you what you're doing is wrong. You gotta turn yourself around. This path leads to death. Why don't you choose that path over there? That path leads to life. Do what is just and right, so that the Lord can bless you. But you are rebellious to the bone. You hate correction. You hate what is good and just and loving and kind. You have a wayward heart. You keep going astray. So the Lord has to break your leg in order to keep you in his sheep pen, because you're just that prodigal sheep. And he does it because he loves you, so that you learn the consequences of not listening to wisdom, to the words of life. It's not the act of a tyrant, it's the act of a loving father. See, and the reason that God's will is rarely done, and that he does not force his will, is because, first and foremost, this is not yet his kingdom. It's his creation, not his kingdom. A king only enforces his will in his kingdom. Think about that. The king of England, is he going to force his will in France? No, unless he takes it over. See, the Lord allows us to choose willingly whether we are willing to do what he says, to vet us out and choose the subjects for his kingdom. Because again, he doesn't want to force somebody. That's not love. Love is willingly. It is self-sacrificial. It's an inside job. Which is why the greatest commandment is, in fact, to love your Maker, Creator, with all your heart, all your thoughts, all your physicality, everything that you are. Because when you have love for him, you will follow him wherever he goes. It's not about the commandment, it's about him. You can obey one or two commandments that you accept and agree with, but what about the rest? Unless you have love, you're not gonna be able to fulfill everything. Which is also the reason why you have to be born again. Because you already are stiff-necked, hard-headed, rebellious, too old and too stubborn in your ways to be transformed. So you have to be born again to become fresh, to become childlike, to become like a baby who's completely dependent on his daddy and mommy, who obeys what Papa says, who gets new input from his parents, new examples on how you ought to conduct yourself. You watch what they do. How does baby learn to talk? They listen to mommy and daddy. You just pick it up by observing. You walk with God after you're born again. You start changing by observing. Yeshua said, I do nothing except what I have seen the Father do. By observing. You become his child, a baby. But that has to be done willingly, and most are unwilling. For various of reasons, doesn't really matter, any excuse will do. But the point being, it is not God's will that we fight each other. Brother against brother, civil war in Israel, Israel against Benjamin, Israel against Judah. That's not his will. His will was not that we fall in sin and die off. He said, do I delight in the death of the wicked? No. But that he turns from his wicked ways and live. The Lord desires above all that none should perish. He created you to live. He doesn't want you to die. But he loves you enough to give you your own will to choose to live for yourself. He's not going to force you to live with him. That's a tyrant thing. That's like a rapist. I'm going to force you in my bedroom. No. God does not force anyone in his kingdom. It is your choice. You have to be willing. You have to want to be there and submit under the yoke of his kingdom. His yoke is easy, but you would rather have a heavy yoke, the yoke of men. The enslavement and slavery and all kind of heavy burdens that men put upon you with their taxes and their you know what. The Lord doesn't do such things. The Lord is very easy. Look at how Israel lived their lives in the days of the judges before the kings. They had pretty much complete freedom. If only they stayed in that moral code and did what is just and right, they would have blossomed and would have been given the entire territory promised from the Euphrates River down to the Nile River. They would have kept multiplying and prospering and enriching themselves in their land, having no king, no taxes, just tithing 10% of your crop to feed the Kohanim and to honor God for blessing you with land and life. 10%. No income tax, no sales tax, no banking corporations, no skull tax, no sons going to die off in all of these useless, godless wars, no enemies fighting against you. You could have had peace, just living on your land, minding your business, growing your vineyards, hanging back, loving your wife and your children. You could have had a perfect life, but you wanted a king to be like other nations. That's your will, not God. But the day is coming when God's will be done, because after all, He is just and righteous, and it is His creation. So He gives us a minute or two. What's a few thousand years in the sight of God, the Eternal One, from everlasting to everlasting. He's not bound by time. So He gives us a minute to allow ourselves to expose who we are, to choose our path. But then He will bring down the hammer, bring forth His domain, His kingdom, where His will gets done. And it is those who are willing now to do His will that will be in that kingdom, because we already have agreed to submit and acknowledge Him, make Him Lord of our lives. We are faithful and devout, and that is exactly what He's looking for, true love. You think you came up with that, true love? No. That belongs to God. He invented true love. He is looking for the heart of gold, for the heart of God, like David. Not perfection. He's looking for someone committed, devout, pure in heart, that truly loves the Lord. Those are the people that God really wants. True love. How can you resist true love? So why don't you will today to do God's will and not your own?